your audience of builders would be certainly able to reach out to Edison or gas company and adopt any of the programs that they are currently offering the builder community. That's certainly no issue. And so that's something we'd be happy for them to do, because it's our job to try to facilitate that process. My job is to facilitate the integration of their programs, of these big utilities programs that are designed specifically for builders, to that builder community that they'd like to engage with.
So just for the record, I just took us live, so we're going to be streaming any second now on Facebook and YouTube. That's where a majority of the people watch the show, and we'll have people jump in here on Zoom as well. As we get going. So we're going to start it off with a little bit of a Q&A, and then we're going to open it up for the audience if they have any questions for you.
Right.
It is 2:02, so Chuck, you want to go ahead and get us kicked off? We'll get started and get the show on the road.
Yeah. This is episode 16, right?
Episode 16, yes.
Yeah. So, yes, welcome to episode 16. Well, we've got Nick Slevin with us. Publisher, editor-in-chief for 6 national magazines. All are pertaining to real estate, and we'll be talking about all that kind of stuff. And welcome, and nice to have you.
Thanks very much for inviting me, gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to speak to the audience and answer any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't mind, the way we like to usually get started is just maybe your story, how you got involved, and what you do today. Just kind of take us to the beginning and how this all came about.
Well, essentially, I make my living in the advertising side of the publishing business. We used to call ourselves a magazine company, but of course now we can't. It has to be media, because magazines is sort of a dirty word anymore. So we're a publishing company. We're a business-to-business, specifically a business-to-business publishing company. We started in 1990. I started a little earlier than that in Dublin, where I'm from, in Ireland. And I worked for magazines in England and in Ireland before I moved to the United States at the end of 1986, about 5 million years ago. And I continued my career in the magazine business, and started my own company in 1990 with the launch of Builder and Developer magazine, which we publish monthly and has been published monthly ever since. And it started out serving the local Southern California home building community, and it didn't take very long for it to grow. And after 7 or 8 fairly short, fast years, we found ourselves facing a national home builder audience from our business down here in Newport Beach. And we started adding additional titles as the years rolled by. We added options for today's fine homes, because home builders were starting to sell houses in the same way that the big 3 used to sell cars. So if you wanted to add something to your home, you could do that at the design stage, and then it would just go on your mortgage. And so options and upgrades became a very valuable opportunity for the home building community. And so that magazine, Options for Today's Fine Homes, was our second title. And then we launched a magazine called 50 Plus Builder, because there was a growing trend for boomers and retirement communities. And so that magazine was launched successfully as a third title. And within that publication, we would showcase developments, communities, master plan communities. In those days, golf communities were very popular. Now, of course, farm communities are more popular. And the boomer community that were taking their chips off the table and downsizing and becoming empty nesters, the builders were looking for information and competitive advantage to build to that particular buyer component. So we supplied a magazine for that. We launched Green Home Builder magazine 15 years ago this year. There wasn't really anything like it going on, and the greening of the nation's building codes for residential construction was creating quite a lot of concern for home builders. Bottom lines are definitely impacted by more complicated building codes. And so we launched Green Home Builder magazine to sort of guide people's way through the maze of regulation, and also provide some ideas and some options and solutions for for green. What is green? Sustainable home building, high performance home building is what has sort of become known as really now. And we've been very successfully publishing that magazine, and even got into our own home building project to demonstrate best practice. And then we launched Residential Contractor magazine, which is really designed for the sub-trades, the small builders, the custom builders, and the remodeler community. And then I looked up and I realized that we were probably a little too deep in home building. about 2010, 2008, realized we had 5 magazines for home builders, and that was probably 4 too many. And so we launched a magazine that, with a subject matter that had been near and dear to me, called American Infrastructure. And American Infrastructure is a magazine that addresses things that are not specific to home building, but then therefore not necessarily of great value to your audience. But in as much as we all use roads, bridges, airports, and so on every day, maybe not airports, it's of interest just generically. But that has been a fun project, and 12 years later, we're very happy with the results. And so we have developed a secondary audience and diversified a little bit into that municipal management infrastructure business.
Can you tell us a little bit about like contributors for the Infrastructure magazine and how you guys come up with that content?
You know, I think we were thinking outside the box a little bit. We took a look at the municipal management world and how the business-to-business media community were really addressing the subjects and the content and the topics that are specific and of interest to that community. And we realized that it had been very vertically sliced. I mean, there's magazines for people who are stormwater professionals and water professionals, and people who replace the manhole covers on streets, and people who design traffic lights, and it was really it was very, very spread out. And what I wanted to try and do with our team was bring it together in a more cohesive way. So we've taken more of a macro look at it. And so we started going to the management of a city. So you'd have a public works director, and maybe even someone in the mayor's office, the public works director, and the city manager, and people at that level who have big impacts on budgets and decisions and so on. And then we decided, why don't we, while we're at it, for the sake of a few hundred extra copies, send a copy to every member of Congress and the US Senate, and every state's governor, and a few copies to the White House while we're at it, not to mention, folks at the Department of Transportation and the Housing and Urban Development and all the other government agencies that are impactful of this, the Army Corps of Engineers. And what was interesting was we started getting correspondence from some of these people. And so as a result of that, we have had a big city mayor or a state governor and a state governor in many cases. In fact, we're working with 10 governors for the current issue, which is in production. And they're all anxious to share their COVID responses with us and what their states are doing in light of what's happening in the pandemic. And so we're working through that with them. And we found it to be interesting. I don't know that any other media company on the magazine publishing side, at least on the business level, has really done that. We didn't really design it so that our audiences would become our contributors, but that's precisely what has happened. And you get, I remember one day driving home from work and listening to Ed Rendell, the former governor of Pennsylvania, speaking very passionately about infrastructure, so much so that I pulled over and I was listening to NPR, and I listened to him speak for 20 minutes on this subject that I could tell was massively important to him. So I reached out to him the next day, and after a couple of twos and fro's, we finally hooked up on the phone, and he started writing a column for us every issue. And it was brilliant. It was great. And I think that opened the doors for other folks of that caliber to contribute their thinking. And it's been very interesting. Excuse me.
So let me ask you, obviously you're getting a lot of inside knowledge and information, and with respect to COVID right now, that's the biggest topic. How have you seen COVID affect the building community, if at all?
Well, it's been interesting. From a home building perspective, it seems to me we were all expecting, we were with bated breath. We all sort of went home on the 15th of March and weren't sure when we'd get back together again. builders are not unlike anybody else, but building is a verb. And let's not forget that. If you're not building, you're sort of a done builder, and that's not going to work. So building was an essential business. Builders just masked up and put some protocols together, and for the most part continued. They maybe slowed down the pace of construction, and some may have cause to regret that now, because the demand has gone much bigger than anybody anticipated at the beginning of this. So, of course, that's specific market to market. Los Angeles is soft compared to this time last year, but much better than anticipated. New York is the same way. But there are other markets in the country, Cincinnati, for example, Austin, various markets around the country where it's been crazy, is I think how people would suggest. Taylor Morrison, big public builder, recently announced May's sales 94% improved year on year. That's an incredible number. So it seems that the protocols that were designed to protect the buyer and the realtor, relationship, have actually lent themselves quite capably and easily to the process. So buyers don't seem to mind buying houses online. They don't mind going through virtual tours, and they don't mind participating in some of these, distance specific protocols. And it seems to have not affected things to nearly the extent that I think people anticipated that it would, which is great news indeed.
I have a question for you. Since some of these magazines you've been doing for 30 years,
Yeah.
It's monthly, right?
Well, Builder and Developer are only monthly. The other ones are bi-monthly.
Okay, so the Builder and Developer one.
Better at night.
Okay, so I mean, 30 years. Where do you get your content from? I'm sure it's not just full of advertisements and solicitation. I'm sure there's some content, and obviously
tons of content.
Right. I mean, we're episode 16 and we're already struggling.
Well, okay. Well, so what happens is, gentlemen, eventually, you build momentum, which in any business enterprise is very important. And when the PR community, the publicists, if you like, understand that you are out there and you're going to be out there and you've been out there and you're consistently publishing quality content to a big audience, then you get on the radar screen and you start to see stuff in your inbox. We used to get piles of mail. Now we get, small piles of mail like everybody else, and we get hundreds and hundreds of emails. I'm getting 500 or 600 emails every day. And it's actually, challenging. But our staff we get a lot of stuff pitched to us, in other words, from the PR community. And builders want stories on their projects. Architects want to share their design themes. The consultant community is a very important community, because these are the boys and girls. We tend to gravitate toward people who are the keynotes speakers at big events when there were rather big events. So I would canvass the speakers lounge at a big event or a big conference in the industry, and I would cultivate columnists that way and contributors. And in some of the cases, there are folks who have written for us consistently for 20, 30 years. And, so we have a core cadre of regular contributors who come in, and occasionally, for example, we have a lady who's running an interior design column for us on a monthly basis now. And it's been very interesting to see how COVID has impacted the design themes. But last month we were covering millennials. So she asked if we would publish the article from her millennial staffer. So of course we agreed, because, if you're going to get a story about millennials, who better to ask to write it than a millennial? So, so interior design through the lens of somebody who's actually in that age bracket and experiencing what that particular community is, or buyer is concerned with, makes great sense. So we have a great editorial staff in here. We have a team of journalists who write themselves, but who also curate content for us. And, that's a big part of what they do is wading through stuff that comes to us and things that we go looking for, and massaging it into appropriate and relevant content. And we try to theme each magazine. So some things will not work this month, but maybe they'll work in 2 months, and we'll put them forward and share them into that particular edition. So curating content, developing content is a big part of an editor's job. The good news is there's nothing but stories. In this time of COVID, one of the very few bright lights is the fact that the story's changing every day, and there's so many different sight lines, and so many people are seeing and trying different things, which makes for fabulous content for folks like me to share, which we do.
I've got a question. I've got a question for you. This is for our realtors. We have a lot of realtors that watch this. If a realtor wanted to expand their network of builders, if they wanted to be more in front of builders, is that something that they should consider maybe advertising with you or somehow aligning themselves with your publications?
Look, we're always open for business. So, I mean, if you're interested in talking to builders, we have a lot of them reading our platforms. So of course, people are welcome to reach out anytime. If you're interested in the new home business model and selling new homes, this is a good place for you to promote yourself. And we have people who do that already promoting themselves. Builders tend to have their own sales staffs, but they do have there are organizations like Ultimate New Home Sales, for example, who are out there and they supply sales reps, realtors who are specifically trained to work in the in the new home community, in a model, for example, and they're very familiar with the new home versus resale home business because it is different. There are definite advantages to a new house, for example, and every new home sold is essentially a custom home. It's a semi-custom home. The first buyers of a new house have an opportunity that the next buyer won't have. They have a chance to put their distinguishing features on it. I mean, and so builders have become very, very good at extracting and teasing what a buyer wants from their new home from that buyer, and then those components and those themes are reflected in the not just in the floor plan and the design, but also in the merchandising and the paint scheme and the landscaping and all the various facets of the house or the home, whether it's a condo, a townhome, an apartment, or whatever. Even apartments have evolved in that thinking. It's no longer a cookie cutter process. There are floor plans. There have been floor plans forever, let's face it, but that's evolved. That process has evolved. As the consumer, the buyer has had more throughput into the design process and the sales process. And I think that's been reflected now more than ever. And as things like indoor air quality and wellness and working from home and studying and which looks like it's set to continue ad nauseum, becomes more prevalent and more widely accepted, we're all looking around at our houses going, wait a minute, we don't have enough bandwidth for Johnny, Frank, Michael, Michelle, and Tim and the cat and ourselves, and we need more of everything. So we need more space. There's only so much room at the coffee table, the breakfast nook, the picnic table in the backyard. So we're starting to see content. A lot of architects are giving us stuff, like huge amounts of stuff, ideas for media niches in bedrooms and all sorts of fun stuff. So you're going to see, we're already seeing design changes as a result of COVID that are significant, and indoor air quality adjustments, which are really going to promote things like energy recovery, ventilation systems, and different things you can do to filter your air and make your home a healthier, happier place. So we're starting to see content that's morphing into design that's under construction as we speak, which is fascinating to me.
So diving in a little bit deeper on Chuck's question, you're obviously a master at growing a brand and getting it to where it is today. What kind of tips can you give the people watching today, whether they're in real estate or in development, that are maybe just getting started or trying to establish themselves within a community? What kind of tips can you give them that can help them in their business?
I think you stay the course. You have to remember, you can get knocked down on a Monday or a Tuesday, but you get a fresh start on a Wednesday. And, you may have had a couple of 3 bad days or a couple of 3 bad weeks or months, but you get to keep going and you get to keep pushing forward and try different things, different tactics, continue to promote. I remember when I started, it didn't take me very long to discover the Building Industry Association of Southern California. This is a group of people that are specifically involved and fully invested in their careers in the home building business and in whatever town or area. And they are a realtor. They're so much they're realtors in as much as they're the sales folks and marketing folks who work for those building companies who work there. But there are also the builders, the developers, the land buyers and agents, and the escrow and title people, and the purchasing agents that work for the building companies that select the materials. There are, of course, the manufacturers who make the windows and the doors. So this is a group of people that I needed to get really invested in. So I remember going to meetings and just sort of timidly handing out business cards and introducing myself slowly but surely. And then I sat on boards. Eventually I was invited to participate on boards and on committees. And I spent a long time participating at that level on boards of directors and networking at events. And that's a very, very important way. Now, of course, we have virtual Zoom with cocktails and so on, which is fun. But eventually we will be getting back to proper networking and conferencing. And that's something I would definitely advocate for anybody who's trying to promote themselves. Go to your, most suitable association or committee and go and participate. Go along, introduce yourself and network. And that's a very old and proven way of growing a brand and growing a business. And you get a lot of feedback and instantly, basically. And it's a very kind of a wholesome, fun, fulfilling way to promote your company. And I've been very invested in that. And you can also sponsor things, because these organizations are always looking for some help to be the wine sponsor, or to be the parking sponsor, or to be the event sponsor at something. So go be that person. If you have the wherewithal to put a little bit of money to good use, it's always appreciated, and they will in exchange for a table for 10 or whatever it turns out to be, you could be an event sponsor at a networking event, and that would be get your logo up on the board and get in front of 300 or 400 people, or 100 people, or 50 people, doesn't really matter. So that's one thing, and then just having good branding includes good networking but paired with social media. You have to be on all these platforms. I have to say, I'm 56. I'm not 26. So although sometimes I feel I am, I don't use a lot of these platforms. I suppose LinkedIn, Facebook. Our company has Instagram and Twitter, but I don't participate particularly personally. But my team certainly does, and that's very important. So you need to. We aggregate our own content across our platforms to big groups of people, and that's important. So we share the content that we generate across our social media paging, and on our websites. You have to have a fundamentally basic, but simple enough website, and that's very important too. You have to be able to. First thing anybody does when you tell them about your company is they go look for you on Google. Or right. they check you out online. So you have to try to, and unfortunately the internet is a funny place. There's a lot of trolls, there's a lot of bullies, there's a lot of cyber bullying, there's a lot of, disenfranchised folks running around being negative. But there's nothing we really do about that. You just sort of have to keep pushing forward, and do your best, do the best work you can, and put it out there, and just keep rinse and repeat. Just keep pushing.
Nick,
keep pushing.
I've got a question for you regarding solar. I know that solar now is mandatory. I know here in California it's mandatory on all new construction, and that's something that's been in the talks for many, many years.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've been in the front line. While it was in the talks.
Yeah.
Do you see other things that could be in 2023 that are going to be mandatory that we can better prepare now for? Like you mentioned, indoor air quality. Is there something else that we can better prepare for?
Well, I mean, look, we build these ABC Green homes to a very high standard. And our job is not to build to code, but to build to beyond the next code. So when the project we just completed is in Crestline, because we're sort of showing off a little bit, every one of our builds has been LEED Platinum Net Zero. And the house we just finished in Crestline has 10 advanced energy certifications, including National Green Building Standard. I've got a whole list. In fact, I have one right here. This is from the water sense from EPA. We added that to our first bills. We do the water sense by EPA, which means so that the building sips water, it sips energy. So our house uses an average of 65,000 fewer gallons of water every year than a comparable house would, which is about 3 domestic swimming pools worth, which is a considerable amount. So we don't just address indoor air quality. We look at this holistically, and wellness is a big part of it. Our interior design lady is Gillian Pritchard Cook, who has a Atlanta and also Newport Beach based interior design team. And she has a program called Wellness Within Your Walls, which is now becoming much more immersive. And I went through her program and became certified. And basically, it's about there's 10 or 12 tenets that she advocates in her program. And indoor air quality is, of course, a huge part of it. But also things like no off-gassing, making sure that you cycle all the appliances through before you bring people into the home. So there's no fresh smells of nasty, whatever, factory-specific treatments or paints or coverings, whatever. And you don't use any VOCs in your paint, which you can't anyway anymore. But there are some paints that still have vestiges of those VOCs. So we build a house that's essentially inert. In fact, Gillian was so strong about this, she wouldn't even let us buy, you can't put pine sol or other stuff. You have to use very, appropriate and natural cleaning agents when you clean the building. And in our house, we did something different with this most recent build. We deployed this thing called an energy recovery ventilation system, which is a new product that's come on the market. And in our case, it was made by Panasonic, but there are other companies that make these as well. The usual suspects, Air King, Bosch, various other companies make these things. And what it does is it takes all the energy all the air out of the building and replaces it. In our case, it replaces it every 15 minutes. So we've got about a 5,000 square foot building, and every 15 minutes, all the air in the building is removed. 78% of the energy, whether it's cold energy or warm energy, is recovered from the air and put into the fresh air that it brings into the building. And then we scrub that through MERV 13 hospital quality filters. And that gives us a really supreme air quality in the house. I mean, we're doing everything except putting oxygen into the building. I mean, that's about the only thing we're not doing. So all you got to do is close the windows and you get clean air. But the other things that we adopted that were just coming into the code, the 2019 building code, were things have been borrowed from commercial and from hospitality. So now when you when you open a window in a new house, when the 2019 building code starts to really kick in later in the year, as a lot of the homes that are being built now were grandfathered in last year to the 2016 code. So what will happen is, as these things come online, you'll start to experience some of these changes. So when you open a window in your kitchen, it'll shut off your thermostat. When you open a front door, it'll tell the thermostat to shut off. This is a straightforward taking something from hospitality and bringing it into the building code. It met quite a bit of resistance, but it is what it is, and here it is. It's the new building code. So we went ahead and we re-engineered our building, and we went through it. We were the first project through the wall, if you like, for 2019's building code, which took effect on January 1st, a year later of 2020. So even though we were grandfathered in 2016, I had our engineering team go back. So we went in and we did all the things we were required to do per the 2019 code, and we still smashed it and beat it by 37%. So none of it is onerous. None of it is silly. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you've nailed it once or twice, then you can easily, builders are going to have no problem building to this more exacting standard. And we're a publishing company and we're doing it.
Right.
So
there are two things obviously that can disrupt an industry. One we just talked about, which is code and regulations. Right. But the other thing is technology. Do you know of anything that is going to disrupt the building, community and industry, or what are your thoughts on how technology is going to affect it?
Well, I'm very, very up on technology, and I think I'm very big on the technology that's affected home building. I mean, there's two ways of answering this. Let me address them. The first way is the smart home tech. There's 114 things inside our project that I can operate from here. The house is 80 miles from here, but there's 114 things inside that building I can do from this. That's great. That's fabulous. And I'm not just talking about the obvious things, but there's all sorts of fun things. We're trying to hotwire Alexa so we can have a poltergeist, so we can more capably demonstrate all the Wi-Fi operable equipment in the building at once. First the building gets dark, and then the doors lock. That's always exciting. And then one by one, the various layers of Wi-Fi capable stuff start to come in. And so when you've got 7 big screen TVs surfing and all the lights are changing colors and the ceiling fans are going off and the doors are opening and closing and the garage door is opening and closing, it just kind of gives you a taste of the capabilities of smart home tech. We didn't set out to do that, but we sort of asked ourselves the idle question, I wonder how many things in this building are Wi-Fi capable. I didn't realize that my Samsung's fridge spoke Urdu, but it does. It speaks 14 languages for anybody who needs to, communicate with a refrigerator in French. Samsung has made it possible. This is what happens when a technology company gets into the appliance business. Go figure.
Right.
It'll also send you pictures of your contents along with menu options and what you can do with, in my case, 3 dead moths and an empty pizza box. And it'll order food from Amazon Food. And they tell me that they're working on a solution so that the fridge will provide a gate access code to the driver from Amazon and then call the police if he's not off the property in 5 minutes. Maybe that's pushing it a little bit, but this is the technology. So that's one component, is the Wi-Fi stuff, which I think is very enabling of the consumer and makes your home more like a video game, which is fun. And you can have layers of this. We went nuts because we wanted to see at the demonstration home how many things we could do. And then it just became kind of fun. Well, if I buy 40 light bulbs, I can add 40 things. So we have light bulbs. We can change the color, the temperature, and I can annoy people in the house at nighttime. I can turn all the lights on. I can turn the heat so it's freezing, or I can make it hot. We can have fun with those things. But the other component of technology is the ability for a realtor to communicate and sell a house without actually having to meet somebody. So you can use meetings like Zoom. You can have virtual tours. You can. There's all sorts of light touch things which make it, holistically a much more healthy process. And for example, the property next to our property in Crestline was sold. And I went and introduced myself to my new neighbors just last week. And they're a nice young couple, and they're there with their 3 kids, and they're moving in and enjoying themselves. And I'm very happy to have them there because our house is empty. So we've got, neighbors there now. And I asked them what they thought about their realtor, and they said, we never met her. And I said, really? They said, yeah, we never did meet her. We came up here and we let ourselves in through the lockbox and we had a look around and we liked it and we made an offer and everything was done digitally. And we signed all our documents online. Everything was done digitally and the loan process was done digitally and everything was done light touch. And that has to be good for the realtor and the mortgage community. That has to be. So I think, long-winded answer, technology, bueno. Bring it on.
Let me ask you a question. Thank you for sharing that. I also feel that way, that technology is slowly going to take over the necessity to have to go and meet clients. And if you can give them a temporary code that'll open the house for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let them in, let them see it. By all means, I'm all about that. My question to you now, back to alignment, because this is what Rubbing Elbows really was the reason we started, was we wanted to align ourselves with people that otherwise we don't really have access to. So, for example, Leo's working on a service, on an app, I think I told you about it, that really targets subcontractors and contractors and being able to organize projects, and he can explain more about that. And I think you guys should definitely connect about that because he's national and you guys are national, and it's a whole B2B to builders. So that's that. But I've got a question for you regarding content for like local builders. So for example, my company, we're in the heart of it all as far as new builders, new buildings new projects that are being developed by some of the top builders here in Los Angeles. How could I contribute to, Builder and Developer Magazine? Am I able to do a weekly, I don't know, bi-weekly or monthly column on what's been happening in our local market in LA?
Well, there are a number of ways that we can engage with folks. We regularly have people advertising lots for auction and properties for sale and land and development. We get news from organizations that sell land, whether they're brokerages or auction houses, announcing results and so on, which we share inside the magazines. So the magazines themselves become a good source for news and content. Our industry news sections in the front of each magazine is often filled with projects. For example, we'll be sharing the winners from the recent Gold Nugget Awards, which is an ongoing annual at the Pacific Coast Builders Conference, which is part of the California Building Industry Association. They have an annual design competition, which we participated in with our ABC Green Home, and we didn't win this year, but we did final. So we'll be sharing the winners in future issues. So people reach out to us, and since the awards last Friday, we've had a number of solicitations for content from folks who won, asking if we would do a story on their project and so on. So that happens all the time. And so in the normal course of things, you just reach out to our editorial team or to me via email or telephone, and we would certainly provide content. We also publish an e-newsletter called Builder Bites, which I thought was very funny when I launched it 12 years ago. It's builderbytes.com, which we publish on a more minimally invasive format of Tuesday, Thursday, and then a weekend edition on Friday. And it shares links to interesting things that are anecdotally going on in the industry and news and so on and so forth. And we're happy to share news on behalf of folks in the community, in our community. There's no charge for that. We just, we curate content and we send it out. We go through and we refine the best and most appropriate content. These aren't themed. It's just news. And so if somebody has something they'd like to share, we're happy to share it. And we can do that. And it's a complimentary service we've provided now for a dozen years. We're it's an email piece. It's sent out to people's emails. I think we have between our two databases, I think we're getting close to 400,000 subscribers digitally via email. So we can distribute that way. Also, our websites, we can post content on our websites for people with links to whoever's news item that may be, to their website. So there's lots of ways that we can engage for people, and we do. And also our social media pages, whether it's Facebook, for an old guy like me, or Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, the other more popular, younger platforms. We can certainly advocate on those too. So anybody who has anything they'd like to share, we're very pleased to make ourselves available and our platforms available. They're pretty comprehensive. They're print, web, digital, email marketing, all sorts of ways we can. And
I'm going to take you up on that.
Please do. Yeah. I mean, like you, we're always looking for content, and some of it's, meh. A lot of it is great. And here's the thing. If you have lots, whether it's infill or whatever, I mean, they're knocking down buildings down around here. We're in Newport Beach, and there's not much of anything. Every square inch of this town has been built, apparently. Yeah. So now what's happening is there's factories being knocked. In fact, an Eaton blower factory gave way to a 400-unit senior community over the last couple of years, right next door to where we are. So stuff's being knocked over to make way for residential units and builders are, and it's interesting. It's not just small infill builders. It's huge, big, massive production builders. All the big guys are doing it. Big guys, big girls. Everyone's doing this here and all over Orange County and LA County and in the Inland Empire. You go out to Murrieta or Menifee, and it's Shea Homes, it's Richmond American, it's Brookfield, it's KB Home, it's the big builders. They're all there because that's where the land is cheaper and more affordable, and they can build more homes at a time. But they're also buying infill properties and building very attractive, small lot, high density, multifamily units, we either for sale or for rent with, patio rooftops on them and self-contained parking and all sorts of wonderful design motifs that are coming online that are being deployed. And in tight infill is a huge piece. The problem is finding the land, finding the lot. So when we hear about land, we tell people. And we're a customer ourselves, so hey, I'll take.
So we talked about that before. We find the land. I'll be sending you tons of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we have a dozen realtors right now running around looking for stuff for us for the next ABC Green Home project. And if anybody's listening, who's watching, who's in the realtors, nslevin@builder.media will find me. And so, by all means, send me anything you have that you think might work, because we're looking to build a
Tal, if you could put that in the comments for everyone. Tal is on here. She'll go ahead and type that out. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, it's nslevin, SLEVIN @builder.media. That's my email. And
beautiful.
It seems to be out there anyway. So by all means, share it. We're looking for small infill stuff everywhere. We're looking for the right piece to make a move on. But if anybody's looking to share lots and listings, I'll be happy to curate and promote them. And if you send me what you're looking to unload or sell, I'll be pleased to share.
Amazing.
For that.
So idea for realtors that are listening, both on Zoom and on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to start marketing and saying that you have a buyer ready to buy a piece of land in a certain neighborhood, you have that buyer. So you don't have to just send out a piece of mail and then just hope to hook them. You actually have the buyer. Go ahead. Okay, so we are coming up on the 45-minute mark, and unless anybody has a question, I do want to ask you what's next for Nick and your brands. What does the future hold in your vision right now?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've been very lucky, I have to say. I was so nervous that we were going to see a huge, decline in advertising revenue and people rolling back their programs. And, we had one cancellation of one single ad. And then that same person 2 weeks later, rang me up and said, hey, can we go ahead and run that ad anyway? So I've been delighted. So we've been, it softened a little bit, but it came back. So our business is pretty solid, I'm very happy to say. So people are still advertising their products and services toward the home building community and the architectural community and the engineering community, which is great. And I think that's really largely because nothing that I have done per se, or we have done, but rather because the home building market is holding up. And some people are arguing that it's leading the economy and into recovery. People are compelled. Home has become a much bigger story. Let's face it, which is where we spend almost all of our time. So, right. And people are making moves. They're looking for bigger homes or smaller homes, or they're moving, they're buying, and money being as affordable as it's ever been. I mean, it doesn't hurt that we're looking at sub 3% mortgage interest rates. That is certainly playing into the upside opportunities for home selling, whether it's resale or which it mostly is, or new homes. That's a wonderful opportunity. So, the upside opportunities are great. So we're going to obviously continue to push forward. We're working on our 2021 programs now. It'll be 12 issues of Builder and Developer, and 6 issues of Green Home Builder, and 6 issues of American Infrastructure, and then maintenance of our websites and publishing of our e-newsletters. But the big thing for us is we just finished a big ABC Green Home project. I'm actively this morning, tomorrow, yesterday, driving around looking at lots. We're looking to make an offer on a piece of property where we can build two smaller 4-unit apartment buildings or condo buildings on a lot between 10 and 15,000 square feet that would have to be zoned, I guess, R3.
How far out are you willing to go out of your area?
I'd rather not be more than about an hour and a half from Newport Beach, just Just because
I have 2 lots side by side, already entitled in
well,
Koreatown.
send them. We have it. Where our teams are out looking. I'm out looking. So that's once we get that lined up, our design team. We work with some really fabulously talented people, and Art Denalian and his son John Denalian from Denalian Associates is one of the better of the very, very good architectural teams, and we are working with them on the next project, and it'll be our first multifamily project.
That's exciting.
We'll be building a very high performing, energy efficient multifamily community little project to demonstrate best practices in high performance home building design, technology, construction, and materials to our national audiences. And that will start, and we'll share the project from soup to nuts, from design through grand opening, as it starts to evolve. So the first piece of the jigsaw puzzle, I guess, is the lot, and then we can design to that lot. So we're looking at all sorts of different things and evaluating to see what the narrative might be. And there are no places off the table. I'm looking at everything. R3 is kind of hard to find, so we have to be prepared to get out of our comfort level a little bit and drive to Altadena or Pasadena or but it's almost impossible to find something suitable. So we're looking very hard, and that's once that box is ticked, it'll be full steam ahead.
I'm actually sending you an R3, 2 R3 side-by-side lots in Koreatown.
Very nice. You mentioned that to me on the phone. Very good. Yeah, nice. Yeah. So hopefully it'll be something we can take a look at. I like Koreatown. It's a very interesting part of the city, and it seems to have become quite trendy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's trendy, and they're giving a lot of forgiveness with the tiers out there, the talk tiers. But
yeah, it's an interesting part of part of Los Angeles, and growing and interesting. But we live in a fascinating real estate area. I mean, we really do. I mean, I didn't realize just how much science went into this business until shortly after I started the company many years ago. I was invited to a grand opening in Irvine, and I went into it, and the building science that had gone into the thinking behind this particular community, and I can't remember which builder it was, but whoever was building in the master plan down there. And it was very Asian centric. The orientation of they had identified that buyer community, and that's what they were looking for. That's who the builder. And so the houses were so specifically designed for that profile. And I remember being struck by just exactly how much science had gone into the psychology of this, the feng shui of the building, the walk kitchens, the whole thinking behind everything. And I realized I was in a very fascinating, interesting business. And how it had it morphed from the 50s and 60s, where the builders would just build them and you just picked one and bought it, and now it's totally not that. It's not that at all. But it's very interesting, and all the different product types, and some of the most incredible design and contemporary design and craftsman design, all sorts of stuff that's getting a new lease on life. It's been very interesting. It's a great story, real estate. It's a wonderful subject and a fabulous business to be in. And I'm very, very happy that I built my career in it.
Absolutely. And Nick, on that note, I want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you're extremely busy to share knowledge with us and give us the stories. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us. As always, we will be here again next week, same place, same time. Hope to see everybody here. And again, Nick, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure, folks. I appreciate the opportunity. And don't forget, reach out anytime. Happy to have been part of this today. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. We will connect offline. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.